Hi guys, it is a pleasure to start a new free tutorial series for you. I'm Alessandro Cangelosi from Nyjo and uh, the idea is to continue working and talking about Chaos Vantage. And we prepared an initial video presenting the software some weeks ago, and it was just to show how Vantage can be useful in a pipeline based on different markets. So, for example, for ArchViz, for visual effects and stuff like that. So, it is a tool that can be used in different ways. In ArchViz, obviously, it's really useful and powerful because it's a really fast and real-time raytracer. And you can visualize and render stuff at a really high quality and speed. You can navigate inside the scene in real time. You can play with the lighting and shading, everything in real time directly inside the software. Or you can use a live link with another software like 3ds Max, for example. On the other side, it is a tool that is useful also for visual effects because you can use it for post-vids, pre-vids, for preparing really high quality play blasts, or in other case it can be useful from my point of view also for final rendering. Obviously we are talking about something that is different from the offline render, so it needs to be used in a different way. By the way, it's a really nice addition to the daily workflow, and you can use, for example, for full CGI background, or in other case you can create full CGI stuff, or for example a complete commercial completely done in CGI, or you can also render stuff and then work in comp because you can play with the layers and AOV, so it is complete. Maybe it is still missing some feature, but it is really powerful, and we like to prepare this series that talks about two projects essentially, and we are planning to show how it can be used, for example, in ArchViz. Obviously, we are not the studios of our ArchViz. We work more in visual effects, full CGI stuff, and cinematics and stuff like that. By the way, we will see how we can use the software directly connected to 3ds Max to work on a scene like this one, and I will show you where you can pick the scene in a few. And on the other side, we can see something different, and I'm talking about playing on something that is full CGI, for example, for a car commercial. So it will be obviously not a complete masterclass, but we are trying to prepare essentially two scenes completely from scratch. So the ArchViz interior, and we are going also to play with this car to prepare a car rendering, for example, for a photo shoot, or also for a full CGI animation of a shot. So we are going to play in a really nice way with both. So talking about where I picked the stuff, you can pick this one. Is a free model. You can pick it there. There are more models, by the way. This one is really nice. You see that the quality is high enough. There is also the interior. By the way, we are more taking care about the exterior. If you like, this one is just the model. If you like, you can go inside the store and you can buy this model, and you see that there is the max model and the other model, and you can buy it. It costs really low, so in the complete masterclass I think we are going to use this one. By the way, you are free to use also the free one, no problem. On the other side, the other scene is here. Here you can pick some free scenes, and you can pick this one, and you see it's really nice. This one is essentially done using Corona, so you can open inside 3ds Max, but we have to redo everything because as soon as you open the scene, this one is NeoBJ model for the moment because we are using the free one. On the other side, this one is a scene, and if you go to open, you have Corona camera and stuff like that, so you can't see anything. So that's why I'm in a perspective view. And also, obviously, the lighting and the materials needs to be redone. So we are trying to do something that is nice to be looked. And by the way, the most important thing is to see how to work with the scene and how to work with 3ds Max together with Vantage. Okay, so if you are going to use this one, the free one, for example, we have to double check the model. I just imported the model, so let's see, setting the units setup to see if the scale is right. I think we have to scale it. By the way, we can double check, and we can use a tape to say, okay, this one is essentially 0.4 centimeters, so we have for sure scale everything. So we go to scale, and we should scale 100 times. So now we should have the right scaling. Let's double check. Okay, no, it is 45 centimeters, so we have to scale it again 10 times. So pick everything, let's go in scaling, and let's scale 10 times. And now if we go to double check, okay, it is 4 meters and 60. Okay, so now it's scaled in the right way. Okay, we go in selection, we go with a W to move the car on the ground. Nice. So let's go to use the layer explorer. That's the basic layer, but we go to select everything, and we say to create a new layer, and let's call it Ferrari. So that's the layer where we are going to take care about the car. So essentially there are two ways to work with Vantage. We have different ways. So one is exporting the stuff in Vantage and then work directly just inside Vantage, and I talk about camera, materials, lighting, and stuff like that. And leave completely 3ds Max or the other software you're using. The other one is and also doing animation inside Vantage. Okay, the other one is let's use the live link. So we use the live link, and we use the live link just to move, for example, the model, or maybe the animation, or the model, the animation, the camera. So you can decide what do you like to have inside the 3ds Max scene, and what you like to have inside the Vantage scene. And in this way you can decide what is done inside Vantage and what is done inside 3ds Max. So we are trying to explore different ways. If you like to do, for example, materials inside 3ds Max, you can use the live link, and the materials will be exported directly, as we seen last time. On the other side, we can also decide to leave completely and do everything inside Vantage. So it is up to you. It depends on the stuff you like to do. Obviously, when you are going to save the Chaos Vantage scene, if everything is inside Chaos Vantage, obviously you don't need any more 3ds Max to continue working on the project. On the other side, if you are using some stuff from Vantage, like materials or lighting or stuff like that, or just the camera, or just the animation and stuff like that, you are essentially using every time 3ds Max. The other way can be also to have the complete scene inside 3ds Max, so you have materials, lighting, animation, camera inside 3ds Max. So the Vantage scene is essentially saving for example, the render preset. Okay, so that's the only thing that is saved inside Vantage. Let's start playing a little bit with this. Today is just the first lesson, so we are trying to understand how to manage the project and how to connect with Vantage and start what we have to do. So let's go to load Vantage, and then we see for both what's going on if we move the stuff inside. So let's say that we like to create a new scene. Okay. Actually, here you see something else because we have Cosmos loaded. So that's the basic scene we have. The first thing we can do is essentially, let's scale down this one so you can have everything inside the same monitor. Okay. Obviously, here we go on just one viewport, and then we have Vantage here. If you have two monitors, it is better, obviously. Actually, here on my workstation, I have two monitors, but for the recording, it's better to use just one, obviously. So actually, you see there is no connection. So as always, the first thing you have to do is to initialize the live link with Chaos Vantage. The first thing it is saying, okay, I need to set V-Ray GPU as a rendering engine. We say, okay, let's do it. It's not a problem. You can do it for us. And now there is the connection. So obviously the problem is actually we have no lighting. So you have to manage this process in two ways. One is, okay, let's go in V-Ray here. And let's say that we go to add a V-Ray light. And obviously if I move this one, you see that we have the rendering in real time on the other side. If this one is becoming a dome, obviously I have the lighting here. So let's go here. Let's say that the dome light is not visible, so it's invisible. And other things I like to do is to tweak the color. By the way, we have also to tweak the render setup. And the color management actually is set to ASIS because this one is the new 3ds Max, okay? So it is set in a different way. And if you're using the old 3ds Max, you have just to set the gamma is as RGB for the software, and everything will be done in the right way. By the way, let's say that actually I think it is split just by colors. I like to double check, not sure. So I like to see we should have anything about the material. Not sure because I see that some stuff has a material and some stuff as other material because the color are different. So we can play with the materials later. It's not a problem. So let's say that this one is the LGT DOM. In the software here, you see that we have different things. So for example, we have the possibility to say, okay, we have a sunlight. So you can play in two ways inside the scene. So actually you see that in the environment, we have the scene substate, original scene. It means the scene that is coming from 3ds Max. And now it says modifier, create a substate, because we are adding a sun. So I think you can essentially work on one side or the other side. So it's the best way because, you know, it can be complex to say, okay, I created the lighting here and then here. We have just the dome in 3ds Max. We have the sunlight inside Vantage. It is better to decide what you have inside the software from my point of view and then play in this way, okay? So in this case, we can essentially continue working with the lighting and the shaded here, and then maybe there is another way. You can decide later to say, okay, I made the material here, and then I like to work on the camera animation and the shot animation just inside Vantage and work in the lighting just in Vantage, okay? You have the possibility to do it, so it is up to you to decide how to play with the scene. It is a really nice way to work because you are free to decide how to move. So let's try to add also a camera. In this case, we go to create, we can directly create from this point of view a physical camera. And And then let's say to use the show save frame, that's our camera, and we can decide, for example, to change the perspective, to tweak how it works. In some cases, usually when you are talking about car rendering, we have not so much perspective distortion, because in this way you are changing how the car looks. You know, it's not something that obviously we like to have, because we are losing how the car looks, we are losing the how it is shaping the car. So it is better to have less perspective distortion. Okay, so we are going always to tweak a little bit to have less and less. Okay, okay. Let's say that this one is the car camera one for the moment, obviously, because we have to decide how to move forward with the project. Here you can set how you like to see the stuff. So for example, you can say we like to work in quality, we like to work in balance, we like to work in performance. So it is using the DLSS at a really high speed. So it means that the scene is faster to be managed. So I don't want to change the camera. By the way, if we go in a perspective, obviously everything is fast as before, but also when we go to add materials and stuff like that, everything will be faster. Remember that here we are working on a RTX 3090, so it's a fast GPU, but it's not the fastest one. So we have, for example, the 4090, and we can use also dual GPU on Vantage. That's the maximum possibility of multi-GPU usage inside Vantage. Okay. So something else that can be useful for the moment. Here you can see also the layers, so you have not to work on the rendering before seeing the stuff. Here we have the navigation, and here we have some information about the camera. By the way, we are going to take care about it step by step. Here we have the camera with the camera lister. Here we have the color correction with a lot of information about how it looks, the output. And here we have the render settings, okay, the basic one and the advanced one. And we'll take care about it. Other things that are useful here, as we said, we have the environment with information about the scene, the sky, the sun, wind, if we have plants. But the plants that have automatic wind come from Chaos Cosmos, so you can pick stuff around. The fog, ambient settings for the ambient occlusion and ambient lighting, and the background, okay? Then we have the materials. If you like, you can set on the clay mode. That is nice because you can deactivate the material and play with the lighting, just the lighting, to see how it looks directly with a clay color, okay? The clay color can be changed, so you are free to say what do you like to use, okay? It is up to you, it is not a problem. You can decide also to say, I don't want to use the reflection, refraction, opacity, bump, self-illumination, so you can deactivate stuff. Let's remove the clay mode, and then you have the scene state, and you have information about the scene. So you have everything that stays inside the scene. You can add models, you can add lighting and stuff like that. So it is this way that gives us the possibility to say, okay, let's work here, or maybe let's split stuff from one software and the other one, and we can decide how to move step by step. So that's the idea essentially for the car. Obviously, we have to play with the scene, and just to give you an idea, let's say that this one is the, actually I'm going to call it road. Let's say that we have 200 and 350, and this one is really long, let's say 2000. Okay. And then you see it's useful also because during modeling you can work in rendering mode, and that's nice because you can do something like that in 3ds Max also using the advanced viewport with V-Ray, but obviously it's a slower way than using Vantage. That's a really fast and amazing pure ray tracer in real time. So it is something that is more similar to working at software like Unity or Unreal. Obviously, that's not the same, but it is something that is really similar to something like that. And also because you can navigate directly inside the scene and doing some stuff like that. So let's say that we have this connection. For the moment, we have essentially nothing special. We can decide to go and pick, for example, dome light, and to do something like that, we can go in poly heaven to pick an HDR map. Let's see what we can do. Let's go for the urban one for the moment, and we go for, let's say, for the moment it's just a temp HDR map we are using. Okay, so let's say that we go to use this one. We have to download it. If we like to have it as a background, we can decide for the 4 key or the 8 key, also for the reflection. So you can decide, for example, you can use an higher resolution for the reflection and a lower resolution for the lighting. For the moment, just to have something that is in the middle, we go to use the 4 key that can work essentially for both situations, and then we can decide if we like to have something else or not. Here you see that we have also the back plates, because if you like, you can go to pick a back plate, put the car here, and essentially render using this HDR map. So let's say that we go to pick something like that later. Actually, we go to use just the HDR, download. Okay, it is loading the map. Nice. Let's go here. We disconnect from here and we go in the folder where I have the project actually here, and go to create a new folder, textures, and we copy the map here. So back in both software, we go also in 3ds Max, and we say that we are using a map, and the map is an HDR map from V-Ray, so we go for V-Ray bitmap, and we go up inside texture. Let's leave the preview, unload the texture. Okay, you see that now we have the map. Okay, actually it's using the texture we have, so you see that essentially is the right one. Obviously we are not matching the camera position, but you see that the lighting is the right one. Okay, if we like to match something, we have just to pick the backplate and work with the backplate. Here in the camera we have the possibility to use directly the filmic tone map. It is a nice way to have something that is more filmic and more realistic, because it's correcting everything about the colors here, and I think it's really useful in many cases, so we are going to use it. So let's start essentially to play with some pieces. For example, this one is the bodywork, and we get to play with the material. Let's see if we can have a little bit of space, so maybe let's say that we go to configure the viewport, and about the layout, let's say 2, and here we go to have the camera, and here we are going to maybe use directly the material. So we try to have it, plate split, and now let's say in modes, let's say dockable. And let's say that we go to, we have not so much space, so I'm finding a way, because here is okay. Let's see if we can, yeah, maybe we can add it on the top. Let's say here, we go back to just one viewport, and we go to scale a little bit, okay? So let's go with a V-Ray material. Let's think about something. We have, for example, the car paint. Let's say that we go to assign this one, and you see that it's rendering. We have the car paint material 2. It is a little bit more complex. Assign, and it's renderable. If we like to do it with a standard material, we can do it. So it is up to us to decide which one needs to be used. We can use the same for this top area. Let's remove this one, and we go to maybe at scale and Shift F, and then we go to a clay, or maybe directly a default. Okay, this material can be named car paint basic, because it's just for some test purpose, you know. And just to play with the material, if we go to double check how it is looking, you see that we have the reflectivity and everything we need. Okay, obviously this rendering is really fast, but we are going to have a really low quality. We have, as we say, the possibility, you see, to enhance the quality, will be better and better, and obviously the speed will be higher or lower. Actually, the scene is really simple, so we have still something that is really, really high quality. We can stay with quality, and then we can play with everything else. So let's give some material, just some basic material for the moment. So Q, let's select the glass. We go to create a new material. Let's say a V-Ray material. We call it glass. Assigned to the object we have at the moment. And we can do, for example, for the moment, just to speed up everything, we say, okay, let's use a glass. I think it is essentially just a thin walled. So we go to say thin walled, and actually you see that we have the glasses. I like to double check when we have no. You see that's what we have with the reflection and stuff like that. If we add again the refraction, you see that we have the interior and we have the exterior. Okay, so it is working in a really nice way. Again, we are thinking for the moment about basic material, so nothing special. It's just to start playing with the scene. Let's say that we need an asphalt material. Not sure if we have something like that on Polyheaven. So let's go to open Polyheaven, and we say that we like to double check the concrete, and we go to search, let's say asphalt, and we have something. So we have the asphalt track, we have the pit lane, then we have a general asphalt. We have also this one that's not bad, this one, and this one. So let's double check both. One is this one, that's not bad, I think. Then we have this one that is highly realistic, and then we have this one that is a really nice basic asphalt. So maybe just for a test purpose for the moment, we can go with this one. I'm not sure, but it can be useful. So let's see what we have in the zip file. We have the ambient occlusion, the diffuse. Let's go to have the displacement as EXR. We have the normal, and let's say that we like to have the EXR. We have the roughness and the rough. Okay, we can go in this way. Download, depending obviously on your internet connection, it will be faster or slower. So let's wait to have the file. Then we go to unzip everything, and then we go to apply the material, just the basic material. Okay, and then I like to, for a moment, to stop and to move on the other side, on the ArchViz scene, just to prepare the basic scene. And then, starting from the next tutorial, we are going to work step by step just on one scene on the other one, okay? So let's go in the asphalt, and we say that we pick all the texture, and we go to copy in our folder. Okay, back into 3ds Max, and we go to create a new view just to have more space. We go to create this one, and it is called asphalt. Selecting the plane and assign, but oh sorry, Ctrl Z. Assign material to selection. Then we need the connection. So we need, for example, let's say inside the maps, we go to we need some general one. For example, I'm going to have a color correction and a composite. And about the V-ray, we start to have this one, and we pick the ambient occlusion. We need another one, and this one is the diffuse, for example, and we call this one diffuse asphalt, and this one is the AO asphalt. With the right naming, it's more simple to take care about the scene. So let's connect this one to the diffuse. Then we go to connect this one to the map to be able to create some color correction. Now you see that we have the map. And about the composite, we can add a new layer, and the second one is the ambient occlusion. Let's say multiply, and you see that everything is working in real time. So then we go here to have a UV map to check how it works, and say that we like to have, for example, let's say 2 here, and let's say 6 over the other side. I'm not taking care about the quality at the moment, it's just for a test purpose. So let's say that this one is nice. Then we need to control the roughness, so we set the material to roughness, so the BRDF set to roughness, and then we set the new map, rough. This one is the rough asphalt. Sorry, asphalt. It is connected to the reflection asphalt, and we get to have a little bit of reflection. Let's start in this way, and then we see if it is enough or not. You see that we are able to tweak it as needed. Then we get to have a normal bump. So we need a normal, it's connected to bump, and then we need another V-ray map using the normal, and this one is the normal asphalt, and that's connected to the normal. And about the bump, let's try to have it more to 60. So now there is something we can do. In the material, we can, let's say that we go to use of perspective, we go to go near here. You see that the quality is really nice. That's really not bad. By the way, if we say that we like to use a displacement map, let's go here and let's say that we go to connect again this one and say to use the displacement. We go to connect to display. This one is the obviously displace asphalt and connect to displace. Something, okay, you see that something happened. So first of all, I like to remove a little bit of blurring, and that's just because it can be useful also if you like then to use, for example, Vantage as a tool to speed up the look depth, and then you like to use essentially V-Ray to render. Okay, so just Vantage is essentially just a color reference and material reference or something like that. And then let's do the same here. Okay, so then in this case, you see that something happened inside the scene. By the way, the first thing we have to do about the displacement, let's go in the preferences from the menu here, and you have to navigate here and go inside render default, and you have to be sure that inside displacement you have the per triangle tessellation level and the emulate to the displacement to have a better quality obviously, and to have a tessellation level set to I. Okay, then to have more control directly over the displacement for this mesh, we can essentially go and set a V-Ray displacement modifier. Over there we can say to use the 2D displacement, then we go directly to say to the material that is not using the displace, but we go to connect this map to the material slot. So here as an instance, so it's using the map from the material. Okay, and you see that there was something here. So let's say that we go higher. Let's say, for example, 1 centimeters. Okay, you see that it takes a little bit of time to do it. We can say, okay, it's 1 centimeters, maybe 1 centimeters and half. But then we can use the shift and say, let's go down by half centimeter. Okay, something like that. And you see that if we go in the clay mode, that's the displace. Okay, in the rendering, you have the possibility to say regenerate the displacement based on the stuff we have, just to be sure that we have the maximum quality you asked for. And you can achieve a better quality, for example, adding more details to your scene, because actually it's making this scene with a really low quality, and it's tessellating everything with the map you have. So if you give it a more complete and complex mesh, obviously it would be possible to have a better quality. By the way, for the moment, I think that's enough. You see, it is working, and it is working also by distance, so that's not bad. Okay, it is using the clay as we said, but you see that we have the reflection and the transparency and the bump, so we can decide also to remove everything. And you see that essentially we lose all the details we had before. So let's go back to have everything. and let's remove the clay mode. Okay. You see that actually, for example, I'm navigating directly inside the scene here and not inside 3ds Max. So that's something that can be done. Let's see, for example, if we say, okay, we have 100 subdivision and 100 subdivision. Okay, you see that it's adding details. Let's say that we have more. Let's say 250 and 250. Okay, we have more details than before, but we have more memory usage. You see that now we have 6 gigabytes and half near, but before we have less. Obviously, the quality is higher, and that's nice because you see that we have more details. Obviously, the mapping here is not right, so we should go here and say that we like to have more tiling, maybe more. Maybe still more, because there is a little bit of distortion, something like that. Just to be sure, let's regenerate the map, and then now it's the right one. Obviously, if we go really near, we start to see that we have not enough polygons for the displacement, but you can always be back and add more details. So you have to decide based on the stuff you need, so it depends on what you are trying to achieve. In this case, for example, I think that the displacement and the bump together are working nicely, because remember that, for example, you can have, obviously we have no camera. Let's say that we go back to the camera and we go near the car. For example, let's say something like that. Okay, so we are near the road. Just something like that. If we have the depth of field, you see that obviously we are losing a lot of details in the scene, but the rendering is really great. It is working really nicely. Okay, so every time we are going too near the road, you see, for example, here, let's say that we go near something that is broken. Okay, here, it is really bad, but if we see with the depth of field, we are distant and we see nothing. So don't worry about it, because the quality can be enough. Again, you see, it's really enough to have something that is really nice. So that's the first thing we have to think about. So let's go back here and say that the car paint, actually we go just to say that the base color is something like a red color, and here about the flakes, let's go for something like that, or maybe a different red color. We are going to take care about the color later, it's not a problem. You see that we have a lot of stuff that are obviously needs to be tweaked step by step. So we can save this one, and then we can continue just to see how to move stuff from the other shot to the other scene to this one. When you go to save the scene, obviously we have to save this one, but if we done just some sets here, we have to save also the scene here. So say scene self, we go to select the folder, and here we say, okay, Vantage car rendering, and let's call it is Vantage setup v001. Okay, yeah, we have to change the naming, so sorry. We can do it later. By the way, let's call it Vantage setup 001. Okay, now it's saved in the right file format, sorry. So let's see what happens if we go in the other 3ds Max and we try to move the data here. So let's say that here we go to quit, It's closing everything. It say that there are stuff that are not done and stuff like that, so don't worry about it. And we close the connection, and we get to have a new Vantage. We go in the other 3ds Max, not this one, this one. Okay, and say that this one is the scene. This one is a little bit more complex, so let's say, as we done before, that we have a new Vantage and we go to connect. Let's say yes. The problem is that this scene was done for Corona, so you see that we have a lot of problems. So the first thing to do is say, okay, let's use the clay mode, okay, because this one is a really big problematic, because there are lights that are done in the wrong way. We have everything that is done. So let's go to see what we have in the layer. We have lights. Okay, we should have nothing about the lights. We should have essentially cameras, and we don't need the cameras because we can't use it. Okay, so let's go to create a camera from this point of view using the physical one. Okay, now it's connected, so you see that it's going in the right way. There is something wrong, you see, with the stuff, because I don't have, so let's say that this one is not useful, but we remove it so it will be updated later. The problem is that actually we have materials that are wrong, and I think it's not able, you see, to tweak the stuff. So I like to see what's going on. So the first thing is, let's create a V-ray light. Okay, it is working. So essentially there is something to do with this object, so it means that it is related to the material. Just to be fast, obviously nothing is compatible because I have no Corona. So the first thing I do is to pick this one to understand what's going on, and pick, in this case it is not able to override this one. Not sure why. By the way, I think that if we go with the material, okay, it was not able because it has no idea about what's going on with this material, you know. So it is rendering in a violet color. Okay, so it's not a problem. So just to understand the scene, I like to double check what we have here. There are, I think, some window on this side. Not sure if this one is a window, but it is better to go over the website to double check the scene. So the windows are here on the side, and this one is work. Okay. So back on both, we need to have this one. This one should be glass. So in the material, just to be fast, we go to use the compact one because I like just to tweak something. And let's say that this one is glass. So let's say glass, and we say 10 volt. And then I like to understand what's going on out of the scene. So let's remove this light. Let's go in the environment. Obviously I didn't set this one, so there is this map. Okay, let's go to double check which kind of map are we talking about. Okay, it's not finding the map. We should use the we should use also the obviously the asset tracker to fix stuff and to avoid problem. By the way, you see it's essentially using this one, and I prefer to go with the default way to create lighting. So we can say, okay, that's a dome as we done before. It is set to 1 for the moment, obviously, and it's using a map. Let's go to pick another map from Polyheaven. So back in Polyheaven for the HDR map. And we go for urban again. Let's see what we can pick. For example, this one, and also this one. I think we can go with something that is from a city, you know, so we see stuff around. Okay, maybe the stuff we saw at the beginning, something like that, is okay for the moment. Or maybe we can use directly a sky, you know. By the way, let's try with this one. We go to download everything as we done before. It's finishing to download. We go to open, Ctrl X, and we go in the right folder. In Vantage interior, let's set a new texture folder and put the stuff here and back in 3ds Max and Vantage, and say that we are going to use a V-Ray map as always for the bitmap. Okay. We pick the map from the texture folder we just created. Open. You see that it's changing how it looks, and then I have to double check the settings here. Okay, everything is okay. I like to double check how it is set for the rendering too, because maybe something is set in the wrong way. It's using this one, that's okay. I was checking just if there is something that is set in a different way. By the way, okay. This map can be put here. Okay, it's spherical, that's okay. Perfect. So let's say that this one, and we can do the same for the other, as an higher specularity and a lower diffuse. Okay, so I like just for a moment say that the objects here are not renderable. Or directly, because I don't want to change the state. So let's say that this one, we are inside the room, and I like to go out of the room to see what's going on. Okay, because it was using a planar mesh, this one. Okay, so let's go back inside. Okay, and the background can be removed for the moment. We don't need it. Okay, so you see that we have back the camera. I'm sorry. Okay, so we are inside the scene, and don't worry about the purple color. It's not a problem. And if we go back to pick the light, we can decide how much energy we have. In this case, for example, let's go back to here, and we say to use the filmic. Obviously, we have this kind of lighting, and we can decide, for example, just to play with the exposure. If we go higher with the exposure, you see that we have more light coming from the outside and more light inside the scene. By the way, remember that you have also the rendering here, and you can decide to have more bounces. Okay, so actually it was using just 2 bounces, and generally for, you see that it's changing. Generally for an interior, it's better to have a higher level of bounces. Obviously, having more bounces will give us a slower rendering. By the way, that's the way to play with the scene. Okay, so we have no sun. Let's call this one LGT DOM, and I like to create, to assign this one to here, and then we go to add a sun. No, we don't need the environment. And then I like to tweak it. By the way, let's call it LGT sun. And then we go to tweak, but we have also to take care about the render setup and say that is locked. So we see the rendering just for this one. And in this case, then we can go here and say, okay, let's give me this sun, and it is really distant. Let's say 0, 0, and then we can move it manually. We have, okay, now we have the sun coming inside. So let's try to have obviously the same point of view, and I mean the sun point as the sorry, the HDR. In this case, now you see that we have also the sun, and obviously the exposure is starting to be too high. We can have, for example, 0, that is the default. Actually, we have also the blooming. We can remove the blooming, so we have just essentially the sun. We can say to scale, you see the sun, to have something that is nicer about the shadows. So we have the possibility to decide how to take care about this lighting and move, for example, the sun to go inside and have also the shadows for this environment here. So we have enough space to play as we like, as we prefer with the scene. So I don't want to record more stuff because I don't want to give you too much information, and then we are ready. Sorry, save incremental. We are ready to play with the scene essentially with one and the other one. So now we can decide which one will be the first one we are going to work with. I think maybe the interior. I'm not sure. Or maybe the other one, the car, maybe. Not sure. We have to see. And with the car, we are going also to have a little animation, so we will be able to have, for example, also the motion blur and other stuff, and try to see if this shot can be rendered directly with Vantage to see what we can achieve. Okay. So guys, thanks for watching, and we'll talk more about Chaos Vantage really soon. Next week we are going to release the second part of this tutorial series. Bye.